Hi, I'm Sarah Cowgill, along with Andrew Moran, Dave Patterson, Graham Noble, and John Clark. And this is the Conservative Five, an online TV news production of Liberty Nation News. There was a noticeable shift in air pressure earlier this year when the Teamsters, headed by President Sean O'Brien, donated $45,000 to the Republican National Committee. And despite praising the current leader of the free world as definitely the most pro-labor president we've ever had and we've ever seen, he didn't endorse Joe Biden and doesn't seem ready to sign up with Trump or Harris. O'Brien was elected, though, in part to reform and reignite the union overall. Just who will America's largest labor union endorse for president? This question for years didn't even need to be asked, as the International Brotherhood of Teamsters has traditionally backed the Democratic Party. 1.8 million members strong. John Clark, would this endorsement move the needle at all?
Well, I think it would. I could see why the unions and American workers are a little conflicted right now. Perhaps they're wavering between two parties that both say they work for the working class. And as I've mentioned here before, we've pointed out, and many people are pointing out, and Robert Kennedy's pointing out, this is no longer his father's party. This isn't the party of the working class anymore. So another aspect of this is how much relevance do union leaders even have with their membership in a time when more and more Americans are losing trust in mainstream institutions, not just the press and government institutions, but maybe unions who also they feel often are maybe disconnected from what they're experiencing on the ground. So I've always been, a little conflicted about, labor in this country. It's sort of it's a double-edged sword, and it can be, a good thing or a bad thing depending on how it moves its force. And I'm really curious to see, well, what our other people have say who have more insight in about our unions. But I don't see how they can endorse the Democrats and say they're endorsing their membership.
All this chatter about a unity government coming out of the Trump campaign seems to be catching on. Are people really ready for that compromise? Dave, what do you think?
Well, I believe where you're seeing is a case where the political moderates that we've always seen as moderates now see their ideological position having remained stationary and the traditional Democrats having moved to the far left, and it's left them behind. And I think you see that. They say that quite frequently, the Democratic Party left me behind. To them, the conservatives are now closer to what they have always believed the American values on economy, education, and a host of political factors are. And it's not what the Democrats are saying or the progressives. The fact is that they have moved far left and no longer represent most of what we used to refer to as blue dog Democrats. The Tulsi Gabbards and RFKs, have seen themselves more in line with Trump Vance tickets than the far left Harris Walz crowd. But remember this one thing, Donald Trump is not really a conservative in the truest William F. Buckley sense of the word. He is a pragmatic populist. And, when you cut through to exactly what he says, he's telling you he wants to make happen what works for the people. And I think that's resonating.
What's the pressure on Sean O'Brien from Democrats? Or they've got to be cornering him and just hounding on him, even though they didn't even invite him to speak at the convention. Andrew, what's going on with that?
Well, first, I would say that it's quite remarkable how far Sean O'Brien has come. I don't know if you guys remember last year, he was in a Senate committee hearing and he wanted to engage in combat with Republican Senator Mark Wayne Mullen. And now he's speaking at the Republican National Convention. So I find that quite riveting. Now, as for your question, according to Sean O'Brien, the reason why the Democrats are shunning him is because they are, quote, caving to corporate elitists. Now, considering that he spoke at the RNC and he's committing a cardinal sin, it's highly unlikely the Democratic Party is or will welcome with open arms moving forward. Now, I think Dave mentioned this. Now, O'Brien probably realizes the political winds are changing. The political situation has become dynamic, and the Democrats no longer maintain a stranglehold support on the labor vote. Yeah, earlier this year, UAW, United Auto Workers Union President Sean Fain, he appeared on Fox News with Neil Cavuto, and he admitted that despite his union endorsing Joe Biden, his union members will vote for Donald Trump because according to a lot of the union members who spoke to Fox Business earlier this year, also they said that Trump speaks more to them than the Democratic Party. So ultimately, the conversation moving forward is whether GOP is going to embrace the whole labor union and labor vote. Will they abandon their position on right to work laws? Will they become more union oriented than, tax cuts for businesses, whatever the case. So for now, the one party is all about Hollywood celebrities and wokeism, and the other party is for what it seems to be this whole narrative of the forgotten man and forgotten women.
Teamsters usually wait until after the conventions, both of them are concluded, and yet we're still sitting here waiting to hear from them. Why the wait, Graham? What's going on there?
Well, if I had to guess as to why they haven't, the national Teamsters, the national organization hasn't endorsed anyone yet. Although actually a couple of California, the locals, the local affiliated branches, two of them out in California have endorsed Kamala Harris. And that's kind of unusual because normally the locals don't come out and make any endorsements until after the kind of national organization does. Why they're waiting? Well, I think there's probably a lot of soul searching maybe going on amongst the people running the Teamsters, because on the one hand you've got, they realize that inflation, particularly food inflation, and various other things have actually hurt their members, of course, hurt them, in their pocketbooks and the kitchen table politics, if you like. But at the same time, they're struggling with the idea that the Teamsters, like almost all unions, have always traditionally supported the Democratic Party, and I think maybe they're having a lot of internal discussions about what do we do, how does it look if we endorse Kamala Harris, who has been part of the administration that has hurt our members so badly. But on the other hand, there's always a lot of financial connections between the Democratic Party and unions. So it's difficult. I mean, I think the Teamsters, I could see the national, kind of the Teamsters not making an endorsement yet for another few weeks at least. I think they might just really be holding off on it, certainly until after the debate, perhaps.
Well, I think the Democratic Party seems to be hinting that they're just not going to endorse anybody, and I don't see that happening. I see them making a decision sooner or later, and his own Sean O'Brien's own people are saying, well, this is the most democratic process of endorsing a presidential candidate we've ever done in 121 years. So I don't know. It just seems like there might be another endorsement coming down that nobody expects.
Yeah. Of course, bouncing off what Andrew said a minute ago, and that is that I think even if the Teamsters, even if they eventually came out and officially gave their endorsement to Kamala Harris, I think probably a lot of their members would still actually pull the lever for Trump when it comes down to it anyway. And again, mostly because that is how the economy has affected them personally.
I think that makes a very good point, Graham. There is a difference between UAW international leadership and the rank and file, and it's always been like that. The UAW did not endorse Richard Nixon, but the rank and file went for Richard Nixon. And the same with Reagan. The rank and file break with their leadership routinely because the leadership of the larger unions are no different than the elitists that we criticize.
Yeah, they live in multi-million-dollar mansions, some of them, and they've got yachts.
Well, and I think that's they want to overhaul this. O'Brien got in there not for saying he was just going to always go, with one party, with tradition. He's a reformer. So, they voted for a reformer. I think his weight is going to carry.
If I may make a recommendation for our viewers, there was a great conversation between myself and Lisa Donner on an episode of Swamponomics TV where we discuss these exact issues.
And the best thing we can do is to keep government out of it.
I implore all our viewers to watch that interview.
You can't come on C5 and endorse a rival show, even if it is still a Liberty Nation news
Okay,
show.
Andrew, you're fired. Anyway, we got to wrap it up, guys. A Teamsters spokesperson stated recently, a lot of our society nowadays, it's far left, far right, arguments by pundits, opinions formed out of the gate. It's an important point to be able to actually stop and listen and engage with something that we need more of. And O'Brien is a firm believer in that end quote. And to me, that sounds like a unity government pitch. So thanks for tuning in, and thanks, panel. Well, that's it for our Conservative 5 panel today. Please note, LibertyNation.com does not endorse candidates, campaigns, or legislation, and this presentation is no endorsement. So check out our other C5 shows and segments on your favorite video platform. YouTube, Vimeo, Rumble, we're on them all. As well, Liberty Nation News has its own Roku channel where you can see all of our TV productions. I'm your host, Sarah Cowgill. Thanks for joining us today for Free Thinking, Free Speech, LibertyNation.com.